Hello everyone, and today we're back with another writing lesson. As always, the focus of this passage is on historical, in particular the US Civil War. And let's get in here. Let's do it. Let's do the dirty work. It was on the flat, cactus-studded coastal plain of South Texas that the American Civil War ended its final battle 150 years ago. When news of General Robert E. Lee's surrender at Appomattox reached the westernmost Confederate state, chaos controlled as the remnants of the Confederate Army turned upon Texas itself. And it was here that the Confederate Army made their final and most futile stand. Within days of Lee's surrender, much of the Confederate Army in Texas deserted. In several Texas cities, the remaining troops rioted for their back pay. The soldiers attacked and looted government warehouses and even commandeered a train. Before long, civilians joined in the pillaging. Some 20 children were injured after playing with looted ammunition, and in Austin, $17,000 worth of gold was stolen from the state treasury. Near the coast, Union Major General Lew Wallace, fearing that Confederate troops would slip across the border into Mexico and using it as a staging ground to continue the war using guerrilla tactics, negotiated terms of surrender. These terms were vetoed in Austin, and several thousand Union troops, mostly African American, landed at nearby Brazos, Santiago. Even as the Confederate Army unraveled, Colonel Rip Ford, the Confederate commander in far South Texas, was holding his men together with glorious speeches. On May 11th, a Union force of 250 colored infantry troops and 50 members of the Texas 2nd United States Cavalry headed for the town of Brownsville and presented a target to one of the last intact units of Confederates. More than a month after Lee's surrender, the Texas Cavalry Battalion under George H. Giddings ambushed the Union detachment, and bullets flew across the coastal plain. The Federal troops fell back to a farm to rest for the night, but at 3 a.m. the rebels attacked again. By 5 a.m., 200 troops from the 34th Indiana Infantry had arrived to reinforce the Union troops, bringing their total strength to about 500 versus fewer than 200 rebels. That afternoon, the numbers were evened out by the addition of 300 Confederates. Ford brought artillery and cavalry, who were leading the rebels in an all-out attack. Relying on African American troops to provide a screen, the Union line finally broke and they bolted for the coast. The Confederates chased them for 7 miles. When all was said and done, there were a few dozen wounded among the Confederates. Over 100 Union officers and men were captured, and some 30 lay dead or wounded. The Confederates seemed to have the upper hand for now. Ford's victory was short-lived. Even as the battle raged in Texas, the governors of the southern states were busy authorizing the Confederate commanders to disband their armies and conclude the war. Well, this is certainly a very informative passage. Let's see what we have. So number one, let's see where's number one. Number one is here. So they were asking us to replace or correct the word underlined. And so Lee's surrender at Appomattox reached the westernmost Confederate state. Chaos controlled as the remnants of the Confederate Army. Well, this there is nothing inherently wrong with this sentence. The grammar is correct. It is past tense. But we don't say chaos controlled. We say chaos reigned. This is something called convention, which easily means a lot of people use it and it is accepted as the correct word. For example, they always say chaos reigned, not chaos governed, and so B and D is wrong. A is wrong too because chaos controlled is just wrong. The essence of this writing section is half of it is punctuation and main ideas, is like reading, but half the rest is just your intuition and knowing what is right and what is wrong, right? And it is, you can't train that. You can only read more in order to do better. Just read more. So number 2, it was here that the Confederate Army made their final and most futile stand. Now, we may be confused that, yeah, it's correct. There, the soldiers made their final and most futile stand. The Confederate Army, that means the soldier, right? No, the Confederate Army here refers to the army, which is not a living entity, and thus there is incorrect. If it was here that the army's soldiers made their final most futile stand, that is correct. But that the army, no, this is not a living entity. This is a thing, and thus there is wrong. Now, there is incorrect. This is a trap. Just don't fall for it. And D is the correct answer. Possessive. At this point, the writer is considering starting a new paragraph. Should the writer make this change? Now, the soldiers attacked and looted government warehouses. Before long, the civilians joined in the pillaging. Some 20 children. Yes, it's the continuation, right? From the soldiers to the civilians. The continuation. Should the author start a new paragraph? So you see, what if he splits, right? The soldiers attacked and looted government warehouses. Yeah, before long, civilians joined in the pillaging. This idea, pillaging, pillaging. This directly relates to the sentence before it. Attacked and looted, right? Looting, pillaging, same thing. So, as a result, this sentence is connected to this paragraph, and splitting it is illogical. And no, because the author is still discussing the aftermath of Lee's surrender. This is also a question, an answer. No, but it does not change the structure of the passage. This whole sentence is illogical if you read it. I will not explain because I think the viewers are smart enough to understand that this makes no sense. Now, near the coast, 4 Union General fearing Confederate could slip across the border into Mexico and using it as a staging ground. As to correct, right? And you see, using a normalized verb here, using a verb as a noun, an ing verb, and using it as a staging ground is grammatically incorrect. And use it, the verb must be in its base form, right? Because if you see, would slip across the border, base form, and use it, this is a parallelism, right? Slip and use. Using is grammatically incorrect. And use it. B is the correct answer. The writing section, you usually see the right answer straight away, and some very hard questions you can eliminate the answers, but I recommend going to the right answer right away, not like reading, you eliminate. This you just choose what is correct. Do not eliminate. You have 35 minutes for 4 passages. Do not waste time eliminating, unless it is very, very, very tricky. Alright? 5. Also a correction question. Even as the Confederate Army unraveled, Colonel Redford, the Confederate general, was holding his men together with glorious speeches. Now, unraveled. This is past tense and was holding his men together with glorious speeches. Well, that's quite correct, I don't know, but let's see the answers. No change, held his men together because of the glorious speech he was giving. This is just awkward, obviously wrong. Held his men together and used glorious speeches to hold his men together. Now, we have to realize that B is wrong, right? C looks good, held his men together. Use glorious speeches to hold his men together. Quite correct, I think. And no change. The tense here is incorrect. No, I think the tense here is correct. But was holding his men together. I think the tense here is incorrect, or it may be like it's not too common sense, because this sounds very awkward. Because was holding his men together with glorious speeches. This should be changed to held. So in my opinion, that answer is wrong. I cannot explain why, but it is wrong. If you have read enough, it just stands out as wrong. So I think it is held. That left us with C and D. Now, the question here is glorious speeches. Does it belong in the sentence? And honestly, I do not think it belongs in the sentence, because it is simply irrelevant, right? The passage is detailing the battle, before the battle, and holding his men together is enough to know that speeches, money is something. This part, it's not relevant to the passage, at least. And so I think C is right. If I don't have enough time, I would choose D, because this just looks too good to remove. And yeah, but I think C is more concise and more correct. You're supposed to choose the best answer. 6. Ambush the Union detachment. And this. Now, why is this wrong? You can see this is wrong. First, it is awkward. Even if you cannot explain, this is awkward. And bullets flew across the coastal plain. And the rule for using these colons are the clause behind it must be a complete clause, not a fragment like and bullets flew across the coastal plain, because the and here is misplaced. There is two options here. Either remove this, then bullets flew across the coastal plain, or you remove the colon. So what do we have? Detachment and bullets, detachment as bullet, detachment so bullets. C and D is wrong, and as I said, A is wrong. We have B by elimination. Seven. I think this is the passage question. If inserted at this point, which sentence provides the best transition to the next paragraph? Now, bring the total strength to 500 versus the 200 rebels. This is like battle details. And that afternoon, the numbers could even out. So, both of these talks about strength in numbers of soldiers in general. And so we need to look for a sentence that illustrates that point. Both sides knew the new winner of this battle would win the war. Not really. You didn't need a miracle. maybe, but it doesn't relate to the numbers. Weary Eye, the you could not be much help in the upcoming battle, not really. And only B relates to manpower, as under man, the Confederates seems to be in dire straits, right? And B is correct. 8. Who were leading the rebels in an all-out attack? Artillery and cavalry is not really a who, and so I think 8 needs to be changed. Yeah, the answers here are they were leading, lead, and leading. Now, lead. They were leading is obviously wrong because and artillery and cavalry, they were leading the rebels in an all-out attack. If so, there must be a semicolon here to prevent a comma splice, and we have left lead and leading. Now, if there is a comma here, then lead is wrong because that is a sentence fragment, and thus leading acts as a verb and also a noun. Leading the rebels in an all-out attack, it directly connects to the clause before it, and it is correct. 9. The Union line finally broke and they bolted for the coast. We have was broken, its soldiers, was broken, so its soldiers, was broken, and its soldiers, or no change. Now, the Union line is not a person, and therefore they is wrong. Or maybe it's correct and it's referring to the soldiers. I'm not really sure, but it needs to be changed. Now, was broken, its soldiers. This is a comma splice. This is wrong. B is wrong. Was broken, so its soldiers. And again, the semicolon usage here is wrong. C is wrong. Was broken and its soldiers. D is the best answer. And also, its soldiers refers to the Union line, which is a more fitting pronoun. Which sentence should be removed? Now we need to read this passage. That afternoon, the numbers were evened out by 300 Confederates. Fort Bragg artillery, who were leading the rebels in an all-out attack, relying on African-American troops to provide a screen. The Union broke and bolted for the coast. The Confederate chased them for 7 miles. When all was said and done, with a few dozen wounded and some captures, the Confederates seemed to have the upper hand for now. Now we need to see this closely. This details the battle, right? All of this, 1 to 5, details the battle. 6. The Confederates seem to have the upper hand for now. And the next sentence, Fort's victory was short-lived. This sentence appears to be out of place. It does not relate to this, and it does not transition to this effectively. And so that sentence, which is sentence 6, should be removed. Which choice provides a supporting example that reinforces the main point? The main point of this, we need to read this, we need to read first. Fort soon returned from military service, content with the role, 600 men perished, racial harmony was soon to follow, thanks earlier, the battle mark on the lessons of the cavalry used in modern warfare. Now, D is wrong. The focus is not cavalry use in modern warfare. A, Fort soon retired. No, the passage is not about Fort. The passage is about the American Civil War. Racial harmony was soon to follow, thanks to the soldiers who fought that day. Relates to the soldiers, but racial harmony is out of place, and thus B is the only thing left by elimination. Wow, we have hit the 20-minute mark by 5 seconds. Thanks for watching. You might want to subscribe if you want, but as always, thank you for listening. I'll be back with more lessons soon.